What's good? God is good. I'm your host, J.DIDIT. Welcome to Thursday Therapies. This is the podcast for all creatives, rappers, poets, artists, activists in the Sacramento community therapy session. Today I have Courtney Chambers, a beauty wellness expert, holistic health practitioner who focuses extensively on somatics and trauma release body work. Courtney's work is rooted in the belief that healing is an act of radical self-love. She advocates for accessible, intuitive self care practices, and her mission is to guide women towards mastering their own healing journeys, integrating somatic awareness with sacred rituals and empowerment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Thursday Therapies. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
How's your week going?
My week is going good. I'm excited. It was just International Women's Day,
Right.
which, is so needed right now.
Definitely.
And the clocks went forward yesterday, which I know some people lament the loss of the hour, but I love having the sun back.
Thank God.
I'm a summer girl.
I am
so-
too. Yeah, we were just talking about that. I am
Yep.
too. Yeah, I
I'm
love
really
it.
excited about that. So I'm happy spring is here. I'm definitely
Yes.
springtime, summertime girl.
Right. So, how's your weekend going? How's your week all together?
Good. Busy.
Busy,
Yeah,
yeah.
spring is definitely sprung. So,
Right.
work is really starting to get busy for me, and kids and just the normal grind. But it's good. I feel like, we were talking earlier, kind of coming out of a tough holiday season. So
Right.
I'm excited right now for it to be spring and summer, and
Yes,
things are good.
definitely. Thank you. So, as you know, this is Thursday Therapies, a discussion on mental health, and I just want to ask you a few questions and get your outlook on mental health.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, my first question is, when did you become aware of mental health, and how old were you?
Oh gosh. So I'm a little seasoned, as we like to say in the South, and I'm from the South. So as far as probably really high school is
Yeah.
the first time that it was really put it in terms that you would understand it in today's context. We like to joke where I'm from, like, down south, we don't hide our crazy. We put it out on the porch and give it a mint julep.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
in that way, it's kind of like more open and talked about than it is, I've noticed, out west in some ways, but at the same time, it's not, which I
Right.
don't know if that really makes sense. But I feel like there's definitely like some things that are like kind of kept in the family. There's still sort of that mentality, but at the same time, like, we take care of the family.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, probably high school was the first time I really like had, mental health stuff come up for friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, how did your family handle mental health issues in your home?
Oh, Lord. Well, I mean, I kind of just described it. We did and we didn't. It wasn't something that we like spoke about in today's language. To this day, I'm the only person in my extended family even that I know about that like actively goes to therapy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I feel like we did it just through a different language. We did it a lot through church.
Okay.
And, I feel like a lot of people where I'm from kind of reach out for counseling through, through their pastor, through church.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is mental health, just sort of by a different language.
Definitely. I mean, you're reaching out for help, and if something isn't going right in your mind, or something is gone, that's definitely you're taking care of your mental health for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a good way to put it. So, have you ever had to witness any mental health disparities in your home or in your community?
Define disparity.
Like any issues, like negative treatment towards somebody because of a mental health episode?
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, I think everybody has. I don't think that we do mental health very well at all. Like, as a society, culturally, there are, without, giving away, people's business that's not my own and my family. There definitely are, members in my family that really struggle with mental health things. And I've seen just the discussion of how it's changed over the last 20 years especially has been groundbreaking. 20 years ago it wasn't in the zeitgeist. We weren't talking about it the way that we are now, and it was something that I feel like just generally everybody had like this feeling of hush shame around talking about it, whereas now it's seen more as a part of just wellness and self-care, at least out in California, which
it's very different.
We are in a bubble out here, for sure.
Right.
But I think that that's something that, social media has helped kind of democratize too, is helping people talk about it in a more open way and, seeing it as a part of wellness as opposed to something that we don't deal with until it's a 911.
Right. And that's unfortunate that it is like that, because it does happen like that. And that's how a lot of people are, being mistreated and end up dead. And it's just horrible. I've seen it happen so many times, and it's just like, this is why I'm having Thursday therapies, trying to bring awareness not only to me and you, but all listeners, police, teachers, politicians, everybody. I just want to bring awareness, for people, like, just because somebody's acting wild or crazy, or, they look like they could be breaking on the inside, and I just want people to know that people need help. People
That
definitely
part.
need help. People
Yeah.
need help, and to be treated badly is horrible.
I think that happens a lot. I mean, I still see it happen today. I think
Right.
that, there's a lot of tropes just in our culture of how women, especially, I
Right.
think, are, maligned with, when they are suffering and feel like they have to suffer in silence
Right.
and, hold the emotional labor for the whole family.
Exactly.
And, I think a lot of us are running on empty and really need help and don't have the community structures in place that we
Right.
once had to depend on. So a lot of us are suffering in silence.
Definitely. And that's kind of like the conversation we were having earlier. Like, someone like you and me, we have a lot of the tools, to be able to pull us out of these issues, these mental health issues. But still, like you said, once you're in it, it's very hard to use those tools. Mental health doesn't discriminate against anybody,
Exactly.
and just because that XYZ on what to do, but it hits you differently, and those tools may not work for you today.
Yeah.
They may not work for you today. That's why it's just really important for you to continue to seek that help, whether it's going to church or whether it's going to therapy or somatic, with what you have going on. That's getting deep in on the inside to the root of everything, and I love that.
Yeah.
But it is, there's so many disparities out there that it's just, people don't know. People just really don't know.
And just because you know what to do doesn't mean you have the capacity to do it.
Exactly.
And typically, when you need it the most is, I always we need love the most when we're the most unlovable.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's the thing. I think that a big part, I think, that needs to kind of be the next part of the conversation, sort of like nationally and culturally, is a lot of people are starting to figure out what these things look like for themselves, but I think where we still really fall short is showing up for each other in community.
Exactly.
I know for me, a lot of times when I have been at my lowest, it's not even necessarily what got me there that I can't get over. It's the fact that the people that I needed support from didn't know how to support me, or wouldn't support me,
Right.
or shamed me for needing support.
Right,
And that's
right,
the stuff
right.
that leaves the lasting damage.
Absolutely.
And I know that with myself and with my clients too,
Right.
especially.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That's definitely true, and it's sad to say, but like, a lot of it is really just not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm not gonna make you my you got your own problems, let me stay over here. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like selfish, but at the same time, it's just like, people still have to protect their own energy. So it's just
The
like, we're all
balance.
running around here, just really not knowing what the fuck to do.
And that's a big part of it, I think, is the balance of, I feel like it's interesting because the school that I went to is an acupuncture school. And one of the most amazing, like, educational lessons I ever got is we went into one of our first classes, because, I was doing a massage program, and this was a book class. It was Oriental Medical Theory. And we walked in the room, and the professor was like, stop. Right there. He's like, I'm going to tell you something I know about each and every single one of you that you've never thought about yourself. Every single person in this room, and every room you've ever walked into your entire life, you have processed every bit of information from left to right horizontally. Chinese people literally look at things from the other side of the world. They look at things from right to left vertically.
Right.
Now compound all those micro experiences across a lifetime of literally seeing things from the other's perspective. And when you start thinking about it, he's like, and that's what I want you to start unpacking. So much about what we think we know is our culture.
Right.
And I think especially right now, we're really seeing culturally in the United States, at least Western cultures,
Right.
our culture is sick.
Yeah.
So, for me, I'm sort of having this pushback, and I'm like actually really deep in things with my therapist right now. It's been wonderful. But, kind of talking about like, are you depressed, or is this an actual appropriate reaction for the situation that you're in?
Right.
And I think that's really important to discern, because some people are coming into it and they legitimately have like imbalances in their brain chemistry, and that has to be addressed.
Right.
And, also understanding, it's sort of a chicken and the egg thing. You're in the situation for so long, and you might be having an appropriate reaction, but that can mess up your brain chemistry if you're in it for too long without being treated.
Right.
So it's, kind of really understanding, like, okay, the way that we're looking at a lot of these things isn't correct in the first place.
Right.
So it's no wonder we're not getting the correct answers. And in the U.S. especially, we have a really big tendency to overcorrect. You look at the opioid crisis for one thing.
Definitely.
You go from it being way overprescribed to now people who are literally like on hospice care not being able to get palliative care.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like we have this really bad tendency to overcorrect, and I kind of see that within like what I'm seeing on social media of, yes, there are times where you should go no contact. If there is abuse, situations like that, you've got to protect your energy.
Right.
And even in what I do in somatics, it's everybody's talking about regulation, that the whole purpose is to get back to calm. No, that's not what somatics is for. Somatics is to give you an adaptable nervous system that's able and capable of dealing with what life throws at it.
Right.
And you're not always supposed to be calm. That's not normal.
No,
right?
That's your natural senses, fight or flight. I mean, what do you need to do? You're going to be calm in a chaotic situation?
Exactly.
No.
So, but culturally, especially women, we're told to behave.
Right.
So when we're culturally programmed to ignore our natural physiological reaction to circumstances over and over and over again, what happens to that energy? Right. So if you think about even just the emotions that we're allowed to express, right?
Exactly.
Emotions aren't negative or positive. They are. And, I think also too is understanding the difference between emotions and feelings.
Right.
Feelings are the physiological sensations that are occurring in your body.
Right.
Emotions are the story you're telling yourself about it.
Exactly.
Right. So like the difference between excitement and anxiety.
Right.
Right. So it feels the same in your body. Right now, I'm a little anxious because we're filming, but I'm excited because I'm happy to be here and I'm excited about what we're talking about.
Right.
So, a lot of times it's kind of realizing like, okay, what story am I telling myself about what I feel?
Right. And that's what a lot of people don't really understand. It's just like your story is your story and it's for you to tell and it's for you to feel. And that's what mental health is. It's for you, and that's why I always am like, check yourself, check your mental health, because if you're sitting there telling yourself the same story from when you were a kid, 10 years old, and it's ruminating in your mind over and over and over, and you can't get to the next step, well, you need to get help to get past that.
That part.
We need to get past that. That's why it's just like, if you're still depressed because of something that happened in the 6th grade, well, you need to check your mental health and get help so that you can figure out how to get past that.
Because our
definitely.
Thoughts can lie to us.
Our thoughts are our critics are inside critics are our worst enemies sometimes.
Absolutely. And we're so much crueler to ourselves than we would ever be to anybody else.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why it's like it's really good to get the help you need, so that you can be more aware of that. And like, I don't have to stay back in 1985 or whatever. I that's past. You're never going to get that time back. Move on from it.
Yeah.
Move on from it, and that way it clears the way for, a better life for you, that shit happened, but don't let it define who you are as a person.
Yes, that part. Yeah, so I agree. And I think that's kind of where, it's about understanding, okay, I feel like especially once you get to midlife, we all know what our strengths and weaknesses are, if we're really being honest with ourselves deep down, right? We know the places that we're stuck.
Right.
And it's about figuring out, okay, what is the key domino here? Where do I go back to find this key domino? If this is the thing that if I work on, it's going to start throwing everything else into place. Right? Because oftentimes what we're avoiding isn't nearly as bad as all the side effects of the avoidance.
Exactly.
Addiction.
Exactly.
Unhealthy coping mechanisms. Those cause more problems in our life than the avoidance.
Right.
And my mantra for this year, and I swear I feel this so strongly, every single thing you want sits on the other side of discomfort.
Absolutely.
Everything.
I've been
even pleasure
we're
sits
going
on the other
through
side of
it.
discomfort.
We're going through it right now. We had a discussion, and our lives are so similar and everything we're going through right now, and it's just like it's very uncomfortable, but at the same time, I know there's it's going to be greater later for sure, and I know that I have to put the work in, and that's why I'm like Thursday Therapies is perfect, because while I'm putting the work in, I'm able to bring awareness to other people, put the work in. It's not easy.
No, but you've inspired me. No,
it's not easy to do the work,
me.
but at the same, you got to dig that shit up and work through it, and it's not easy at all. But once you're working through it, and then you can get past that, it's so much easier to be able to handle life. you know.
Yeah, because you've built competency.
Right.
And I think that's the thing too of, when you spend your whole life in avoidance, and that's also built into our culture.
Right.
Of avoiding unpleasant feelings.
Absolutely.
Like we are taught
we
to
want
be
instant gratification.
Totally,
We don't
especially now.
Right.
We can just, do a dopamine scroll.
Right.
Bed rotting, all these different things that we're using as unhealthy coping mechanisms. And, once you get outside your comfort zone and you sit in the discomfort, that's the thing, is that we are so scared of discomfort, but
Right.
discomfort is not that big of a deal. Like
Yeah.
when you actually look at the science of it,
Right.
Those feelings in your body only last a few minutes.
I was gonna say it's gonna pass.
It passes
it's just
way
a moment.
faster.
It'll pass.
Yeah, usually the energy you're expending to avoid it is way more than it would to be just to sit in
Yeah,
it.
and
then you're
that's
over
that's
it.
what causes the depression and everything, because it's draining. It's mentally,
Well, yeah, and then
physically,
you feel
emotionally
shame.
draining.
You feel
draining,
shame,
draining.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like if you start small. It's like a muscle.
Right.
It's like anything. You build the muscle of your own emotional competency,
Right.
and of learning that no, I can do these hard things.
Yeah.
I can be uncomfortable and sit on the other side of it, and then do the thing. I mean,
Right.
reward yourself, even if it's something small, something
Right.
silly. Reward yourself that no, I had the uncomfortable conversation. I did, whatever it is. It's different for everybody, but we all are faced with those decisions 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And it starts compounding, and then you start to see after a while the positive benefits
Right.
of it. And then all of those uncomfortable things, it starts to become less and less because you're dealing with your stuff.
Right.
And you don't have to deal with the uncomfortable things as much because you're dealing with your stuff.
Right. And you might think about it, it might come back up, but you're like, block it, that at that point it's just like, that don't faze me anymore, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So my next question is, do you feel like the world's understanding on mental health has changed since you first became aware of mental health?
Oh, drastic. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 46, so, I grew up in the 80s, and I was telling my kids the other day, I feel like, my son's always like, back in my day. It's funny.
Right.
But I was the last generation. I had a completely analog childhood and a digital adulthood.
Mm.
So the world has changed so much in my
Right.
lifetime. And these conversations I've changed drastically. Even just the language, from, I believe, back in like 2013, 2014, I was in one of the very first Facebook groups for narcissistic abuse.
Wow.
That wasn't in the zeitgeist then.
Right.
And just having that language changed my life.
Wow.
Because nobody knew what gaslighting was
Right.
back then.
Right.
But the moment
A lot of people don't know what it is now. They still don't know,
And
but-
that's the thing. Words become overused, and people think it's lying, and it's not. But the power that comes from having the appropriate language for what you're feeling,
Right.
and understanding that you're not alone.
Right. that
Social
part.
media has been amazing in that. Like, there are a lot of bad things that come with social media, but I think it's like anything. It's, there are pros and
Right.
cons. It's a tool, and it's how you use it.
It's how you use it, 100%. Yeah.
And
no,
it was
definitely.
been life-changing for me in that respect, of just knowing that there were other people going through what
Right.
I was going through, that I wasn't alone, that
Right.
I wasn't crazy.
Right.
And I think that's something that is really especially weaponized against women, especially, of, oh, you're crazy.
Right.
Still,
Yeah, no, still.
And I mean, and will be probably for,
Right.
that's the fight. But
Right. Right.
that's the fight we're fighting. That's the good fight we're fighting.
Right.
But, it's definitely changed, but I still think we have a very long way to go.
Definitely. I think it's always going to be like that too, especially just with who we have in power, period.
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's that
but-
overcorrection,
Right.
like it swung this way, and then now there's a panic.
Right.
And it's just like, I hope that it's the last vestiges of the patriarchy trying to, but, and I think that's the thing that they don't realize, is that, oh no, like, we're not going back.
Right.
Right. When we are not going back into the kitchen.
Not at all.
Like,
No.
that's not going to happen. There's too many of us
Right.
who are educated now.
Right.
You can try to take it away, but, there's
Exactly.
too many of us. I think we
Yeah.
are up for a really big fight coming up,
Right.
but I think that they are definitely underestimating women.
Yeah, women, definitely. No, definitely. And I'm just like, it's really good for us to fight the good fight and just break all these cycles,
Yeah.
just definitely, especially for our children.
Yeah, the generational trauma.
Definitely. So, do you believe in seeking outside support therapy? Yeah,
Obviously.
yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
what I do. I consider myself, it's interesting. I was having this discussion with a client the other day. They were asking me how, I got into what I do. And that's a very long story that we don't probably have time for. But, it's definitely evolved. And, you know, when I first started doing this, it was body work. And, you know, back then, I mean, even acupuncture back in early 2000s was not common. You know, it was something, you know, they were doing the very first, you know, PCOM, where I went, and UCSD Medical School were doing one of the very first studies between East West medicine then when I was in school for women's fertility. And, you know, it's changed so much. And, you know, the last several years especially, you know, a lot of these things, they don't even have, like, degrees for yet. Like, I'm an expert in somatics, but you can't go to college at this point and get a degree in somatics at a traditional university.
Right, no.
It's something that, you know, those of us who have studied it have had to cobble together from learning over here, getting a certification over here. And, like, it's starting to get more regulated, where there's, like, a, you know, agreed upon, you know, language and set of skills that you need to have.
Right.
But we're creating it as we go.
Yeah.
And, you know, I definitely see myself now, like, yes, I do body work, but I consider myself a part of people's mental health care.
Absolutely.
Because of
100%.
what I do and the way that I do it. Because, you know, I don't give the type of massage where you just go, like, if you're going to a spa.
Right.
Like, when my people come to me, like, it's a relationship, just like you would have with you know, a talk therapist.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, I want people who are, you know, ready to do the work and want to be with me for a long time.
Right. No, that's amazing. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love the work. Can you explain to the viewers what somatic means? Because I know what somatic means, but a lot of viewers might not know.
So the best way to describe it, you know, is, you know, I always tell people what happens to us gets stored inside of us.
Absolutely.
Right. And, you know, everybody always tells you, I'm sure you've heard that your skin is your largest organ.
Right.
It's actually not true. Your fascia is.
Yeah.
So, do you cook?
I do.
Okay, so whenever you're, like, cutting meat, do you know, like, the silver skin in steak? Okay, that's fascia.
Yeah.
Right? So it is the connective tissue that holds your body together. And it is a living, breathing organism, and it connects every single part of you. And when you have, like, a knot in your back, that is a fascial adhesion, right? So, you know, as we are going through life, there are certain places that your body tends to store trauma, right? For women especially, it tends to be in the hips, low back. Okay. A lot of us hold, like, stress, like, you know, I feel like the lower you go, the deeper you go, right? So, you know, most of this up here, like, there's a reason, like, we have these sayings, like, they're a pain in my neck, right? Like, you know, you've got certain people like, no, he's literally a pain in my neck, right? So, people will have what are called somatic emotional releases. So, when you're doing body work in specific ways, and, you know, do you get body work? Have you ever had massage done?
I've had a massage.
Have you ever, like, gotten emotional while you've had a massage, like, unexpectedly?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I have.
So they probably hit something. Yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of times it's unintentional.
Right.
Unless you're going to somebody who specializes in it. But, you know, the thought process is when you are in these situations, specifically traumatic situations, oftentimes our body's going to go to fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Right. And for women, oftentimes we are socially conditioned to go into fawn.
Right.
And the fawn response is something that I wish everyone would educate themselves on, because that's where a lot of, like, gray area things happen within regards to abuse and sexual assault, because, you know, a lot of times women will, you know, you get polite and you get nervous and you get anxious and you feel like, I'm going to be able to polite myself out of this uncomfortable situation, and those signals get misread because you're afraid of being villainized or ostracized or all of these things. So,
and even fawn is new. That's new.
Yeah, relatively.
New,
and so when you don't allow your body to fight, or if your body goes into freeze and then that energy gets stored, what happens to it?
It stays there.
It stays there, and it becomes illness over time. So that's why especially people who are in long-term abusive situations end up with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is way more complicated and difficult to deal with, because a lot of it is gray, right? You know, you're in a situation and, like, you know, I think the word abuse in particular is something that we also need to kind of, like, deconstruct, because all of us have abused before, right? Like, I've lost my temper and yelled at my kids. You know, like, we're human. We don't have to be perfect. It's about what you do afterwards. It's about taking accountability and
100%,
healing and moving forward. So when you are doing somatic work, it is about releasing that stored energy, releasing that scar tissue. And you can do that through body work, but you can also do it through exercises and breath work, which is incredibly powerful. And, you know, the somatic exercises, you know, that's the thing. I think a lot of it with my clients, I tell them, I'm like, you just have to get past feeling silly, because a lot of time it's literally rocking. right? What do you
Yeah.
do to a baby when a baby's upset?
You rock them.
You rock
right.
them, right? And deep inside, we're all little kids
And
still,
want to be
and
definitely
we have to heal our inner child,
right. That's
right?
That's what we're doing, and that's what therapy and everything. We're healing what was hurt back then, and we're just trying to manage and cope with every day. We're still trying to figure it out. Everybody's still trying to figure it out.
So when I have a client who is with me, certain things will come up, and it's about allowing that to be released, but you're releasing it in a place where you're safe.
Right.
So you get to start to rewire those pathways.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, especially PTSD, when we get triggered, we lose access to our frontal cortex. That's like what we were talking about. Like you might have the tools, but if you're losing access to your frontal cortex, it doesn't matter. You can't get to them.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're in your amygdala.
Right.
Right? So if you're in your fear brain, you've lost access to that. So what do we actually do?
Right.
And that's the thing. I think that's where I got frustrated with talk therapy. It is amazing. I'm not saying don't go. I still go.
Right.
But it reaches its limit of what it can do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You get to a certain point, like I can articulate the problem. I can articulate all of my family's problems.
Right.
Back
right.
generations, right?
Right.
But when these things keep happening and you're getting triggered, it's like, okay, well, what the fuck do I actually do about
Right.
it?
Why am I still feeling like this?
Right. So
Right.
you have to start rewiring your brain.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we do that? And there are specific things that you can do. EFT tapping is one. Breath work is big. And somatics is really big. These are all different tools that work. Meditation is really good too. TM especially. So, they're all different tools that you can put in your tool belt and figure out what mix of it works for you. And sometimes, I was really into tapping for a really, really long time. I still tap, but right now my big thing is somatic exercises.
Yeah.
And not to say that I won't go back to tapping. That's just what's working for me right now.
But at least you have that tool in your belt, and that way you can go back to it. Everything might not work today, but it might work tomorrow. And that's the whole point.
And
is
anybody
learning
can do it.
And anybody can do it. Right.
That's my passion.
Right,
is
so.
the people who need mental health care the most are the people who often don't have access to it.
Right.
And especially with tapping, like, I think every child should be taught tapping from the time they are in kindergarten.
Right.
Because, if you have hands,
right, we discussed this, yes.
you can tap.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you give that tool to everybody?
Yeah.
Like the science is there. Like they've done so many studies on what it does for anxiety, how it would help like discipline across the board.
Right.
So, for me, it's about understanding that, yes, like if you need serious interventions, go get them if you have the ability.
Right.
But if you don't, or in conjunction with, there are things that you can do for yourself.
Right.
And even just having the agency of knowing that you can take your healing into your own hands is healing.
And that's the whole point of Thursday Therapies is just, you don't have to go see a therapist, but, therapy is out there for you to be able to get that, and they could refer you to other places. And just with the holistic healing is checking on yourself. It's checking on your mental health, your body and your mind and your soul, and that's the whole point of this is just to get awareness. You don't have to just because I'm saying calling it Thursday Therapies doesn't mean you have to go to therapy. There's so many other ways.
All kinds of therapies.
There's so many other ways, that you can just go out there and get help and heal from that trauma, and be able to manage your mental health.
Yeah.
So that you're not out here, struggling on your own.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people end up doing is they feel like they're the only one, or they're ashamed or afraid.
Right. And they just the trust. It's really definitely the trust. A lot of people just still don't trust.
Yeah, and that's why this is so important. That's why I'm so impressed with what you're doing, because it's destigmatizing it.
Right. We are all struggling. We just went through the craziest pandemic ever.
And we're all still dealing with it.
Being affected by it.
Absolutely.
So, we're not alone.
Yeah.
We're definitely not alone. Okay, so my next question is, of course, do you trust it? Do you trust the mental health?
I mean,
help?
yeah, I feel like it's like anything. I think that you have to use your own agency, and you have to, figure out what's right for you. I have had, and I understand why, especially certain groups of people would have mistrust against the medical system. Women and minorities, I think, have a long history of being abused by the medical system, particularly mental health. So I understand why there would be some like built-in community mistrust there. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about the kind of stuff that I'm doing, because it can be taught in workshops where communities can kind of disseminate the information themselves and, take it amongst themselves of, at least having more tools in their box. Right. So, yes, I think it's amazing. Do I think that, it's like anything else? Like there are some good doctors, there are some bad doctors, and you have to use your own common sense and figure out like what is right for you.
Right.
And also think that's so important to have somebody to go with you.
Right.
You know, have somebody you trust.
To advocate.
Yes, because
definitely.
typically when you need it, it's when you feel the worst.
Right.
You know, you're not thinking of the right questions to ask, or you don't remember because you're in pain or you're upset. Like, have somebody you trust go with you.
Right.
And then you can at least know that, okay, did I hear what I think I heard?
Right.
You know, because sometimes, I mean, I've been talked to, women especially, our pain is diminished a lot.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, so, you know, I think that's really important. Like, the community aspect is, I think, super healing and important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I never really thought of that. That is a great idea, to just bring somebody that you trust, just another set of ears. That way, even if you missed something, you know, have somebody else there with you. That's a good idea.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's important, too, of just like, you know, if you know somebody who does live alone, who, you know, of just even offering that, of just like, hey, you know, I know if you've got a doctor appointment, do you want somebody to go with you?
Right.
Because that's something I think that people would feel weird about asking,
right.
you know, and I mean, I get it, it's private, and some people are super
definitely.
private, and you know, if that's a boundary they have, of course, you know, do what's right for you.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people, if you offered it, would be more open to it than you think they would, like, especially if you have like an elder in your community.
Because it's scary.
It is.
It's scary going to the doctors.
It is. And you know, especially if you know, have a family that doesn't, I mean, my mother, she had a very negative experiences with, you know, medical when she was young, and it really affected her health later in life because she just put it off until she absolutely couldn't. You know, and she's gone now, you know, and we would like literally have to drag her. So, you know, for a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff there,
is, definitely.
You know? So, yeah, I think
and a lot of it could have been prevented, because same with my mom, you know, and I feel like she could have been here today if she would have, you know, really just focused more on managing it and getting the help she needed. And I wish I was able to be there to, you know, advocate. And that's a good thing, you know, really good thing to
you know, and you know, when
check
you know
on your
better,
loved ones.
You do better.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, it's the people that are the strongest that need the help the most.
Yeah, but nobody's going to help them because they see that they're the strongest.
Yeah.
And I get that all the time. Oh, yeah, she's doing good. She's doing all right. But not knowing that, you know, I could be breaking down on the inside and not really knowing, you know, just because I know and have those tools to be able to get help doesn't mean I still don't need more help.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I have a similar situation myself where, you know, if I'm self-isolating, if you're not hearing from me, you need to come check on me.
Right.
You know, because I'm a social butterfly.
Exactly.
So if I'm not like out chitter-chatting and, you know, if you don't hear from me, go check on her.
Okay.
You know,
Something's
wrong. And I think there's a lot of people like that. I have a really good friend who is just one of those women. If I didn't know how amazing she was, like she does everything. She runs businesses and makes movies and, you know, all of these things. She's so strong, but she's also like, I check on her all the time because I know she does that for everybody.
Right.
So it's like, who's taking care of you?
Right. That part.
Yeah.
Look, we're one and the same. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of women are, though.
Yeah, I think the matriarchs and families really take on a lot.
A lot. Yeah. So what are some coping skills that you use to get you through the day? I know you have a ton of them.
So many.
I love it, though. I love it.
So right now I'm really into breath work. Mm-hmm. I'm, you know, and I could literally spend hours talking to you about this, just even like the spiritual aspect of it, of like going into like what it says about the breath in the Bible, and, you know, but that I think is something that has just been revolutionary because we all have it. Right. You know, so much about our body and our physiology is controlled by our breath. So breath work, I do EFT tapping. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And essentially what it is tapping on certain acupuncture points in a certain order while you're doing positive affirmations, right? Mm-hmm. It literally takes 5 minutes. You know, you can do it as often or as little as you want. I think it's kind of like meditation in the way that it's a practice. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in the moment, so like if I start tapping, right, literally, you could teach this in schools, and that's all it is, in that order, right? Yeah. You do it a little bit slower, and you say certain things while you're doing it, but, you know, if it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Right, you just tapped for 5 minutes.
You feel a little silly, right? So big deal. You know, you compare that to like drug interventions and stuff with kids with like ADHD, right. You know, like, you know, there's a lot more possible side effects with that. So I tap. And, you know, really big too is I think art.
Yeah.
Art is huge in I think mental health care. I think it has a very important place and should be a big part of the conversation. All different types of art therapies. You're an artist, and I think writing, singing, dancing. Dancing is especially important in somatics, and that's something that in doing the research, ecstatic dance is across cultures all across the world, and that's another way of like releasing. Right, so you can do it through body work, you can do it through exercises, or you can do it through dance, and that's a way of doing it and bringing in community as well. So there's anything can be ritual if you are mindful about it. You know, and I think that's important too, is just slowing down and like even your self-care routine, you're washing your face at the end of the night. Don't rush through it. Make it ritual, make it about yourself, make it about like taking the moment of like, no, I'm taking care of myself in this moment.
Well, for some people you just have to start. Some people don't wash their face at night or brush their teeth, just make that a ritual, slowly but surely routine stack. Yeah. And when you look at it like that, of like, I think especially people with ADHD and people who struggle with, not have enough spoons. I don't know, how many spoonies there are in your audience, or people understand the terminology, but, it can feel overwhelming. Some people it's just like, okay, I took a shower today. And that's what they did. And if you're there, hey, I've been there, we've all been there. I still have some days, well, yeah, there's days, if all I do is get up and take a shower and did that, I did my best.
Then you did your best.
I did my best for that day.
And that's okay. And that's okay.
And that's the part that a lot of people have to get over with too, is that's okay. To have a day, because like for you and me, we're like constantly on the go, constantly doing 10 million other things. But if all I do is lay in bed or get in the shower and that's it for one day out of the month, then that's okay. Because sometimes I can get really down on myself for not doing so much, and that's a whole nother mental health issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of how we're programmed, we're programmed to the cult of busyness, and like rest is revolutionary.
It is, definitely.
Of taking it back and saying, no, I need rest, and not having to justify it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But then that's where your mind goes. Then your mind gets to go in
easier
there.
To say to do.
So like get the tools in your toolbox so that you can really just be kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's I think where I have the hardest time personally, like as a mom, with that boundary. Of I'm a single mom too, so it's like juggling a lot. And I'm just like, no, mom's done. Like, shop's closed. I'm done. I'm turning it off, and like I need y'all to respect that. And like really like making sure that that's how I'm communicating it too, because I had gotten to a point, we're human, we all do this, where I would get snappy and irritable. You get to the end of the day and you don't have very much left, you know, and of like recognizing when I was starting to feel that way, I'm like, okay, I'm getting hangry. When was the last time I ate? Start checking in with yourself.
Drink some water.
Yes, like those things. And I think those basic things are oftentimes like, sometimes it's that simple. Like, like I think that the conversation around mental health care needs to be as nuanced as human beings are, but at the same time, sometimes we really do overcomplicate it. Like, it's definitely just basics. Like, you need to be outside in sunshine. You need to drink enough water. Get enough sleep. And you need to be with people.
Community.
That is so important. Like, everything about is regulation. You self-regulate so that you can co-regulate.
Exactly.
We come into this world wired for co-regulation. We are meant to be in community with one another. We're built for it, literally, in our DNA. So that, I think, is what so many people are missing, is that trusted feeling of community. And I can't remember if it was you that I was talking to about this, like we were talking about our mother's passing. Of, I've lived all over the country, and one of the things I love about Sacramento is when people do stuff here, they do it so big. There's this huge like activism culture here that hasn't, and I've lived in 13 states. I've lived a lot of places. People will do a whole like art activation or a movement or start a nonprofit, but they forget to check on their neighbor. And when I went back home, it was the exact opposite. You kind of have almost like this learned victimhood of like, well, that's just the way it is. But, we came home from the hospital, our driveway was being shoveled, people were cleaning the house. Like, they just show up for each other in a real like neighbor way. They don't ask permission, they just show up and do it. And I think that is what I see. If we could blend the two of those, that is what is missing to build like the vibrant community. We need to have, the people who are in the like leadership roles,
Yeah.
doing the bigger, activations for everybody, right?
Definitely.
But there also needs to be like this sort of micro level of no, like we just need to be together.
Right. And that's how I feel too. I'm just like, if I don't hear from somebody and I'm just like, or they're going through something, I'm just like checking on them. But
Yeah.
but it was never reciprocated. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, what's going on?
And I feel that, and that's changed too. And I
Yeah.
think social media is huge with that, especially post COVID,
Yeah.
because it didn't used to be that way.
Right.
And I've noticed that a lot, and I don't know exactly what it is. If it's we're all just kind of like recovering from the trauma, or I feel like we're losing those skills.
Right.
I feel like we're losing
we got to
those
bring
skills
them
'cause of
back,
this.
bring it back to the basics.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And instill them in our kids, and hopefully they'll be able to carry it on. But yeah, no, we definitely need to bring that back, the community, and love thy neighbor.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah, and
Seriously.
I think people are starting to realize too, like they realize that like we changed how we are literally wiring our brains with this, and we didn't realize
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see like the negative side effects of that now, and I feel like there's starting to be sort of like a swing back in the other direction.
Right.
But that's something that I've just been really intentional about. I'm an extrovert. I love having a house full of people.
Right. Me too.
My house is an open door, and my kids know that, their friends know that.
Right.
Like I want to be in community with people,
Right.
and for me, that's been more healing for me the last few months, especially.
Yeah.
Of just having
A
friends
safe
come over.
space. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Safe space for everybody. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
And just being like, you don't have to do stuff like
Right.
just come over and hang with me.
Right. Watch a
Yeah.
movie, something.
Yeah.
Look at each other. Let's just look at each
Yes,
other.
exactly.
Be in the
Let's look at
moment.
each other, because like I'm like, if we've gotten to the place where I'm feeling like quality time is that we're just staring at the same screen,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
and hey, sometimes I'll take it. Sometimes
Right.
if we're even just staring at the same screen, I'll take it.
Right.
But
At least we're doing it together.
that part. But
Right.
then it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
That's the thing. My kids are like, well, it's a screen. I'm like, no, it's a difference of a shared experience and being in your own world, just sitting next to each other.
Right. Right.
That's not the same as being in community.
Right. And I've been noticing that a lot too lately. Everywhere I go, I'm like, I'm sitting in the doctors, everybody's looking at their phones. I'm like, okay, on the bus, everybody's looking at their phones. I'm like, and I'm just observing everybody. I'm just like, this is wild.
And you compound that over years
Yeah.
of all those missed opportunities
Right.
for connection.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's wild. It is. Yeah.
Of just taking it, and that's something that I try to be very conscious of. Not to say that I always do it. We all
Right.
get bored, but
Right.
I have very consciously been trying to keep my phone
Right.
away
Yeah.
when I'm waiting in line and
Definitely.
and talking to people.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the difference it makes in my mood and the difference it makes in other people's moods.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of times we take for granted, we don't realize how much of effect we have on each other.
Right.
And you really can like be the difference of somebody's day, or something as simple as just like a genuine compliment.
Absolutely.
We don't do that for each other anymore,
Absolutely.
and we really
Yeah, everybody's
need to
heads
start.
are down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because everybody's heads are down.
Yeah.
So we're missing everything.
Yeah. It's
We're missing all these bids for connection.
right.
So I mean that's something I remember learning in school. Like people will throw bids to you for connection.
Right.
Of just a comment or something where you can tell they're trying to like start a conversation, and we're not always open to it. You're not obligated to give that to someone.
No.
But
The gesture's nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's genuine,
Right.
throw it back.
Right.
See what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's dope. I think you kind of touched on this next question, but do you believe having creative outlet is important to managing mental health, and why?
Absolutely. Oh my God, yes. I mean, artists are healers, healers are artists.
Right.
I think it's one and the same. When you get into the science of things and you talk about creativity, when they talk about like creative genius, before we go to school, we're all at the level of creative genius,
Yeah.
right? We were put on this earth to create. I think
Right.
that's our natural state, is to connect and create,
Right.
right? That's what makes us human. That's
Right.
what differentiates us from everybody else, is that we create,
Right.
right? So I think when we're not, it leads to depression.
Yeah.
When you have creative energy that has nowhere to go, what happens to it?
Right.
You eat it, or
Right.
you drink it, or you let it go down the drain of a Netflix binge,
Right.
And I mean, I know for me, just on a personal level, I'm so much happier when I'm creating, and and it doesn't have to be. I think we get caught up in like the self-shame spiral of thinking like if you're doing something it has to be like, who cares?
Perfection.
You know,
Yeah.
like I went crazy during the pandemic and painted my entire house silver and gold.
I love it.
Oh my God. I love it too. My kids are like, Mom, you know, but I was like, no, like that's what I had,
Right,
you know,
right.
and I wanted to paint, and I'm not like a painter,
Right.
and it was meditative for me, you
Nice.
know, so like I, you know, went crazy and just used what I had,
Yeah.
and it kept me sane,
Nice.
you know, and, you know, I think just whatever, we all have something that we're into, you know, and it's, why not?
Why not?
You know,
Exactly.
why not? If not now, when?
Right.
You know, and that's also how you come into community with people.
100%. This
You know,
community,
that's how we met, was through
yeah,
art.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been amazing. I think it's really just to be able to create something is just to get out of your mind, really, you know, and thinking about negative thoughts and just creating and putting something into music, art, you know, whatever. Even if you're dancing, you're just thinking of those next steps on what you're doing instead of thinking about negative shit.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really important to create, and then not only that, you're like with my writing, it's like I'm writing a lot of sad stuff right now because I've been through a lot of sad stuff right now. But I'm like, at some point, it's like therapy. It's just letting it out, you know, getting it out, you know, and then being able to express it and then have connection, and for people to be able to feel what I wrote at the same time. That's, you know, that's amazing.
Well, that's how, you know, when you know, talk about developing empathy in kids, it's through literature.
Yeah.
You know, we're literally like putting ourselves in someone else's shoes.
Right.
And that's also why representation is so important too.
Right.
Because, you know, I mean, what was the study? I think like they did, you know, I think 6% of the books on the shelves were told from like a female perspective.
Right.
They were all, you know, so, excuse me. But I think that's how we develop empathy. You know, we are literally, you know, putting ourselves in someone else's experience. And if we don't do that, how do we develop empathy?
Right.
You know, and that's also the core of what makes us human.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what can you tell our listeners to encourage them to check on their mental health?
Oh, gosh. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Right.
You know, I think if you're a person who, for whatever reason, has a block there, because that's the thing. I think a lot of people are open to it and know that they need to be doing it. So if you have a block there, it's to explore that, sit in the discomfort of that, and figure out why. Like, what are you avoiding? Like, what are you afraid like is gonna happen if you start actually dealing with it, right? And I think you kind of have to just go from there. But you know, this is the thing. I don't know anyone that has done anything towards their mental health that has ever regretted it.
Right.
Like, I've never seen it be a bad move for someone. Like, it's not going to be a negative. Even if it doesn't do what you thought it was going to do, you're still doing something for yourself, which that act alone is healing.
Right.
Right? Like, you're prioritizing yourself.
Definitely.
So, I think that, you know, just all the things we talked about.
Just start, you know, just if something ain't right, just reach out for help and get the help you need. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah. Well, it affects everything, too. I mean, you know, in school we learned it's body, mind, spirit. They're all connected.
Right.
You know, so you can't have a healthy body, and you know, they've done so much research about how, you know, exercise and its effect on your mental health, and you know, they're all connected. So like, if you want to be healthy, you want a healthy spirit, you can't leave out a third of the equation.
Right. No, that's what I said. Like, you can work out all you want to, but what's going on the inside is still, you know,
it's still there. It's not going to go away.
Of what's going on, you know, with your life.
You have to. I mean, like, you know, what is it? Like, a triangle is the most stable shape in geometry. You take away one of the sides of that, and you got nothing.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah. You have to deal with it at some point, because if you don't, it's going to deal with you.
Yeah. So just check yourself, check your mental health. You know, get the help you need. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's switch gears. Do you have any poetry that you want to share or anything?
Oh no. You know, I have some stuff that I'm writing right now, actually, but it's going to be a long time from being ready. You know, I have some breathwork classes that I'm really excited about that I've got coming up.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Do you have any events coming up?
I do. So on Wednesday nights, I work with the Parkour and Performing Arts Center in Lincoln.
Okay.
And are you familiar with what parkour is?
Yes.
Okay, well, for the
It's
people
like-
who aren't, it is a movement discipline.
Yes.
You know, if you watch action movies, you've seen parkour people.
Right.
You know, they go and do flips off walls, and you know, it's stunt people basically. You know, a very close friend of mine owns that, and you know, the thing that's amazing about it is, you know, she's a martial arts expert, and martial arts is arts.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I
So
love
we
it.
make movies there.
Okay.
We teach kids how to make movies and how to create. We do. My daughter is an aerial silks coach there.
Oh wow.
And we are starting an ecstatic dance event, date to be announced, but we should be having them this summer,
Nice.
at least once a month. And on Wednesday nights, I'm going to be starting a breathwork class.
Nice.
So yeah, for anybody who's interested in learning, come on out. You know?
That's amazing. Yeah, I always say it's Ninja Warrior because my daughter loves parkour. She actually got a parkour set to be put up
You got to bring
for
her up.
Christmas. Yeah, no, she loves doing all that.
We have some people who've been on American Ninja Warrior who trained at the gym.
Really?
Oh my gosh, she literally like creates world class athletes and artists.
Nice.
She does. Like we have people who are in Cirque du Soleil who started training.
Wow.
American Ninja Warrior. You know, several people who've been like in the Marvel movies who've gone
Okay.
on who've trained at our gym.
Nice.
So yeah, it's Parkour and Performing Arts Center in Lincoln, and yeah, you know, most of the stuff during the day is geared towards that, and you know, we wanted to start bringing some nighttime classes in,
Okay.
more geared more towards the adults.
Okay.
Not to say that we don't have adults that do parkour, but it is
Right.
mostly kids, and so we're going to start with breath work
Nice.
and go from there. Eventually, I'd
I
like
love
to do some Kundalini yoga classes too. So
I love it. I love it. That's just the same thing with any other projects, any personal projects that you're working on.
Right now, I am really working on building what we were talking about, building out like my digital wellness situation, my Amazon storefront,
Nice.
and you know, creating content for that. So
Right.
I can have like, you know, there's only so much of me. I can only do so many massages.
Right.
So I'm working on you know, building that out. So you know,
Okay.
that's my big creative endeavor at the moment. And I also have another project I'm working on, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Thursday Therapies. Check yourself, check your mental health, everybody. Where can people find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, my link tree, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, on all the socials. My Amazon storefront, Forever Glow Wellness and Beauty.
Okay.
And I am in Lincoln. I have my permanent makeup studio there. Is Studio 48 in Lincoln, California. That's
Okay.
where I do the beauty side of things. And literally in the exact same shopping center, Parkour and Performing
wow.
Arts Center, is also where I do a lot of my wellness work. So, you know, people can find me on, you know, I don't know if you're going to post my links anywhere,
Okay.
but yeah, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I'm on all of them.
Okay, and is it
It's
Courtney
Courtney
across-
Chambers. Yes, Courtney
across the
Chambers.
board? Okay, cool, nice. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Thank you for having me.
Check yourself, check your mental health.